Greetings, Padawan. This module, we're going to talk about Edith Wharton, one of America's treasures, and she deserves a lot of our respect. She is the first woman to receive the Pulitzer Prize for Literature, and an adaptation of one of her works was also won a Pulitzer Prize. So she is a woman of first. She was one of the first women in the public eye to get divorced. She, during World War I, she set up hospitals and hostels and things to help refugees. So she was out there helping the community. She is the first woman to receive an honorary degree from an Ivy League school, Yale. And so that's another first that she has. And she designed this house that you see on the screen. So she was a decorator and a designer and an architect apparently, and she designed and had this house built, and you can visit it if you're ever up in Lenox, Massachusetts, called the Mount. So Edith Wharton is a fascinating character because she writes in a style called the novel of manners. So I have to tell you a little bit about what that is, and then I'm going to talk about the work that you looked at in this module. So in the British tradition of the British Romantic movement, the novel of manners, you've heard maybe of Jane Austen. She was probably their chief publisher of that kind of a novel. And it's usually a novel about a single woman who's trying to get married, trying to, marry into a particular social class higher, than, or same one as her or higher than her. And there's different scenes throughout the book that that show you how you're supposed to act in that social class or how you're not supposed to act in that social class. And in the British tradition, because it's part of the romantic tradition, there's usually a happy ending. But Edith, because Edith is a rock star and she's an American, was like, that's nonsense. That isn't the way it always works out. So her novel of manners happens during the American realist movement, and the endings are often tragic. So in a typical recipe, right, for a novel of manners, the only two ending possibilities in the British tradition were that you lived happily ever after, which was 99% of the time, or 1% of the time you could die in childbirth. But something important to remember about the British version of these novels of manner is that we're dealing with aristocracy. So social classes in the United Kingdom are set up because there's a queen and a king and, lords and ladies and barons and baronesses and whatnot. So the caste system is pretty strict. And at the time of the American Romantic period, the aristocracy in Great Britain was saying, well, America doesn't have a caste system. They don't have aristocracy, so they don't have social classes. And Edith Wharton was there to say, tisk tisk, there are indeed social classes, and there's this thing called New York High Elite Society, which is full of snooty people, and I'm going to show you what it's like. So she's written many books that are fascinating. House of Mirth is just the one that we're talking about, but Age of Innocence is outstanding. If you like this kind of literature, that's a good one to read as well. So in House of Mirth, it's about a young woman named Lily, and she is trying to move up the social ladder, and she has to do that. She has to marry up the ladder, right? But she's very indecisive. The whole plot is about her being indecisive, and she loses her opportunities. She misses her chance. And so at the end, she slides down the ladder and ends up in the working class, and she can't handle it because she believes she's high class, and she ends up committing suicide. So like Kate Chopin, there's another suicide to deal with. So what is Wharton saying? Well, if you don't marry into it, you don't have a whole lot of options. So, and you have to either accept that you're going to be this working class person, or, there's no room for you in this world, because she couldn't get into that elite society that she felt she belonged to. So it's a tragic novel. It's very sad, but it's excellent because it does show the beginning of our caste system here in in America, right? So there are people who have stuff, the elite New York society. There are people who don't have things, that's the caste system. And while there is mobility in the American system, you know, theoretically there's mobility. You can go from being poor, you know, like Mark Twain, and move up into wealth. It's easier for men than it is for women, because women, the only way to do that is through marriage, right? And then the consequences of not making it means you go down the ladder. So great text, very interesting. I'm not having you read the whole book because we don't have enough time for it, but if you like to read, I definitely recommend it. So Edith Wharton is making a comment on our caste system that is just forming. And there are some writers, even as of today, who say that we have a caste system based on race exclusively, right? Just the color of our skin determines who gets what and who has what in our society. We have a caste system based on gender. You get this if you're male, you get this if you're female. And so the adoption of the newer, you know, the newer terms for genders, right? That poses a problem, because now people who are steeped in that system of this or that now have to think about this, that, and these other things. And then there's others who would argue that our caste system is only divided by working class, right? Whether you're, you know, working a blue collar job or working a white collar job. So these are things to think about when we think about realism, because when we write about how things really are for people, are they real are the realities the same depending on your socioeconomic class, your religion, your gender, who you choose to love? Like, are the opportunities the same? And what would Edith Wharton say in 21, in the 2000s? What would Edith Wharton say about that? So I like her work. I think it stands the test of time, and I hope that you enjoy learning about her. See you next time, Padawan.